10 black celebrities born male you didn't know about identity can become dangerous when the world treats difference like deception. One childhood secret, one cruel accusation, one camera searching for a flaw. For black transgender women, simply living openly can invite rejection, violence, ridicule, and an endless demand to explain what should never require permission. Under red carpets and studio lights, these stars appeared fearless, glamorous, and untouchable. But behind the success were years of bullying, homelessness, family rejection, closed doors, and industries that often celebrated their talent while refusing to respect the women standing before them. Today on Black Hollywood Uncut, we are pulling back the curtain on 10 black transgender icons who transformed pain into power. Stay until the very last second, because the final stories reveal courage stronger than prejudice. Subscribe to Black Hollywood Uncut and hit the notification bell. Laverne Cox, 54, age now. Laverne Cox did not simply enter Hollywood. She forced an industry built on narrow ideas of beauty, gender, and black womanhood to make room for a reality it had spent decades ignoring. Born in Mobile, Alabama, Cox was raised by her mother and grandmother in a deeply religious environment. From childhood, her feminine expression made her a target for relentless bullying, shame, and isolation. Performance became her escape. Cox studied creative writing and dance at the Alabama School of Fine Arts before continuing her education in Indiana and New York. She initially dreamed of becoming a professional dancer, but acting eventually gave her something even more powerful: the ability to transform personal survival into stories that could reach millions. Her early career was filled with rejection. Hollywood rarely offered transgender women meaningful roles, and black transgender actresses faced even fewer opportunities. Cox appeared on reality television and co-produced Transform Me, but her life changed in 2013 when she was cast as Sophia Bursette in Netflix's Orange is the New Black. Sophia was not presented as a punchline or a mystery waiting to be exposed. She was a hairstylist, a mother, a wife, and a prisoner trying to preserve her dignity inside a brutal system. Cox gave the character warmth, intelligence, humor, and visible pain. In 2014, the performance made her the first openly transgender person nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award in an acting category. That same year, Cox appeared on the cover of Time beneath the words, "The Transgender Tipping Point." She later became the first openly transgender person to receive a Madame Tussauds wax figure and won a Daytime Emmy as an executive producer of Laverne Cox Presents, The T-Word. Her visibility also carried danger. Cox faced invasive questions about her body, online harassment, public misgendering, and the expectation that she explain an entire community every time she entered an interview. Instead of retreating, she used her platform to discuss violence against transgender women, racial inequality, incarceration, and the importance of portraying trans people as fully human. At 54, Laverne Cox remains an actress, producer, and cultural trailblazer. Her story should not be framed as the revelation that she was born male. That language turns her life into a surprise, constructed for an audience. The real revelation is what she accomplished after the world repeatedly told her she should remain invisible. Laverne did not ask Hollywood for permission to exist. She appeared on its biggest screens, claimed her place in history, and helped open a door that can never be completely closed again. T is Madison, 48. Age now. T's Madison turned the kind of visibility once used to shame black transgender women into a platform built on humor, ownership, and unapologetic self-definition. Raised in Miami, she entered adulthood in a world where race, gender identity, and economic exclusion often closed conventional doors before she could reach them. Instead of waiting for approval, Madison learned to create attention on her own terms. Her rise began online. Through viral videos, blunt commentary, comedy, and fearless conversations about sex, family, body image, and survival, she built an audience that recognized something mainstream media rarely allowed black trans women to display: complete personality. Madison was not presented as a tragedy, a medical mystery, or a background symbol. She was loud, funny, vulnerable, confrontational, and fully in control of the frame. That independence carried her into television. The T's Madison Experience, which premiered on WETV in 2021, followed her attempt to expand a digital following into a broader entertainment career while navigating business, family tension, and public expectations. The series made her one of the first Black transgender women to lead and executive produce a reality program centered on her own life. Madison also brought her voice into film, music, and cultural commentary. She appeared in projects including Zola and Bros, judged ballroom competition on Legendary, and became closely associated with the language and energy of Black queer internet culture. Her global breakthrough expanded when Beyoncé sampled Madison's "Bitch I'm Black" declaration on Cozy from the 2022 album Renaissance. The placement carried a voice developed outside traditional institutions onto one of the world's biggest albums, helping Madison become one of the first Black trans women connected to a Billboard charting hit. Her path, however, was never free from exploitation or ridicule. Madison has faced transphobia, racism, public scrutiny of her body, and efforts to reduce her earlier adult entertainment work to a permanent source of shame. She answered by treating her past as part of her survival rather than evidence against her dignity. At 48, T.S. Madison is no longer waiting for mainstream culture to decide whether she belongs. She transformed digital notoriety into television ownership, acting opportunities, music history, and advocacy. Her story should not be framed as the shocking discovery that she was assigned male at birth. The real surprise is how a woman dismissed by traditional gatekeepers built her own door, walked through it, and made millions watch. Janet Mock, 43. Age now, Janet Mock changed American media not by allowing others to expose her story, but by claiming the authority to tell it herself. Born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and raised across Hawaii, California, and Texas, Mock grew up navigating race, poverty, gender, and family instability. During adolescence, she began living openly as the girl she understood herself to be, long before mainstream culture offered many affirming images of Black or Native Hawaiian transgender women. Her road to public influence was built through education and journalism. Mock earned a degree from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and later completed a master's degree in journalism at New York University. She worked for several years as an editor at People, learning how celebrity stories were constructed, framed, and sold before eventually stepping into the public narrative herself. In 2011, Mock publicly shared her identity in a Marie Claire article. But the experience also exposed the danger of surrendering control to media institutions. She later criticized language that treated her womanhood as a transformation from an allegedly authentic male past. That tension shaped the work that followed. Stories in which transgender people would not merely appear, but define the meaning of their own lives. Her 2014 memoir, Redefining Realness, became a New York Times bestseller. Its follow-up, Surpassing Certainty, examined ambition, relationships, sex work, education, and the complicated process of becoming visible without reducing oneself to a lesson for outsiders. Mock then brought that control behind the camera. As a writer, producer, and director on FX's Pose, she helped build one of television's most significant portrayals of Black and Latina transgender women in New York ballroom culture. In 2018, she became the first transgender woman of color to write and direct an episode of a major television series. Her influence expanded again in 2019 when she signed a major overall deal with Netflix, becoming the first openly transgender woman of color to secure such an agreement with a major studio. Her work later included Hollywood and other high-profile television projects. At 43, Janet Mock's legacy extends beyond representation. She helped move transgender women from the subject of television into positions of authorship, direction, and executive power. The most important truth about Janet Mock is not that an audience once misunderstood her identity. It is that she learned how media manufactures misunderstanding, and then entered the writer's room to change the story at its source. Angelica Ross, 45. Age now. Angelica Ross refused to choose between surviving the system and rebuilding it. Born in Kenosha, Wisconsin, she grew up in a deeply religious household where expressing her femininity created fear, conflict, and isolation. After leaving home as a teenager, she briefly served in the United States Navy. But military life offered little refuge from the struggle to live authentically. Her path into entertainment did not begin with a Hollywood audition. It began with a computer. At a time when transgender women, especially Black transgender women, were routinely excluded from stable employment, Ross taught herself web design, coding, photography, and digital production. Those skills gave her financial independence and revealed a larger problem. Many marginalized people did not lack talent. They lacked access. In 2014, she founded TransTech Social Enterprises, an organization designed to provide technical training, professional development, and employment pathways for transgender people and other underserved communities. Ross was not merely asking companies to become more inclusive. She was helping people build the skills needed to enter industries that had shut them out. Her acting breakthrough came through the web series Her Story, followed by the role that transformed her public profile. As Candy Ferocity in FX's Pose, Ross portrayed a ballroom performer whose sharp humor and defensive confidence concealed deep vulnerability. Candy's storyline forced viewers to confront the violence faced by Black transgender women without reducing her to a statistic. Ross then joined American Horror Story, 1984, and later American Horror Story, Double Feature, becoming the first transgender performer to hold series regular roles on 2 major scripted television programs in succession. In 2019, she also became the first openly transgender person to host a national presidential candidate forum focused on LGBTQ issues. Visibility, however, did not protect her from discrimination. Ross later spoke publicly about alleged mistreatment, misgendering, and exclusion behind the scenes in Hollywood. Emma Roberts subsequently apologized after Ross described an interaction she considered transphobic. Ross also criticized the industry for celebrating diversity publicly, while failing to provide equal power privately. At 45, Angelica Ross remains an actress, entrepreneur, musician, speaker, and political advocate. Her story is not shocking because she was assigned male at birth. It is powerful because she survived institutions that repeatedly underestimated her, and then created opportunities for people still waiting outside the same locked doors. Dominique Jackson, 51. Age. Now, Dominique Jackson did not learn confidence from a world that treated her gently. She created it from rejection, poverty, and the constant need to defend her right to exist. Born in Scarborough, Trinidad and Tobago, Jackson grew up in a religious environment where her femininity made her a target for ridicule and abuse. As a teenager, she left the Caribbean and traveled to the United States searching for safety and possibility. America did not immediately provide either. Jackson experienced periods of homelessness, economic hardship, and exploitation while trying to survive in New York. But within the city's ballroom community, she discovered a world where chosen families protected people rejected by their biological ones. The ballroom floor became more than a stage. It became a place where survival could be transformed into beauty, discipline, and authority. Jackson developed a commanding runway presence and became connected with the House of Extravaganza, one of ballroom culture's most influential houses. Her elegance eventually carried her into professional modeling, fashion events, and the Oxygen reality series Strut. She also spent 13 years writing her autobiography, The Transsexual from Tobago, documenting a life shaped by migration, identity, survival, and self-creation. Her defining mainstream role arrived in 2018 with FX's Pose. As Electra Abundance Evangelista, Jackson portrayed a ballroom house mother whose glamour, cutting dialogue, and intimidating confidence initially made her appear almost untouchable. But beneath Electra's armor was a woman terrified of returning to poverty and invisibility. Jackson gave the character cruelty, humor, vulnerability, and dignity, turning Electra into one of the show's most memorable figures. The series placed Black and Latina transgender performers at the center of their own history, instead of using them as decoration around someone else's story. For Jackson, that visibility carried personal weight. She had lived through many of the social conditions the drama portrayed: housing insecurity, discrimination, chosen family, and the struggle to remain elegant while surviving. Away from the screen, Jackson has spoken publicly about violence against transgender women, racism, homelessness, immigration, and the need for protection beyond symbolic representation. She has also continued working as a model, author, speaker, and advocate. At 51, Dominique Jackson represents grace forged under pressure. Her story is not about a hidden identity finally exposed. It is about a woman the world attempted to push aside, who stepped onto the ballroom floor, claimed the spotlight, and eventually made television reflect the people it had ignored. Peppermint, 46 Wewoj now. Peppermint spent years commanding New York nightlife before television audiences finally discovered what club-goers already knew. She could sing, act, improvise, and hold a room without asking permission. Born in Pennsylvania, she found early freedom through theater and performance, eventually moving to New York City and becoming a respected figure within its drag, music, and LGBTQ entertainment scenes. Her career developed long before reality television. Peppermint released dance and pop recordings, performed internationally, and built a reputation for combining powerful vocals with quick humor and emotional honesty. But her mainstream breakthrough arrived in 2017, when she competed on the 9th season of RuPaul's Drag Race. She entered the competition already living openly as a transgender woman, making her presence especially significant in a franchise where discussions about drag and transgender identity had often been complicated. Peppermint reached the final 2 and finished as runner-up. More importantly, she allowed viewers to see that being a transgender woman and performing in drag were not contradictory identities. Her warmth, stage experience, and willingness to explain that distinction helped broaden the conversation without reducing her entire personality to education. 1 year later, she broke another barrier on Broadway. Peppermint originated the role of Pythio in the Go-Go's musical Head Over Heels, becoming the first openly transgender woman to originate a principal role on Broadway. The achievement was larger than one casting decision. It placed a Black trans performer at the center of a major theatrical production rather than at its margins. Peppermint has continued releasing music, acting, hosting, and advocating for transgender equality. She has also challenged the entertainment industry's habit of celebrating representation while offering marginalized performers fewer resources, smaller opportunities, and less protection behind the scenes. At 46, Peppermint's career reflects persistence rather than sudden discovery. She spent years perfecting her craft in clubs before the mainstream recognized her talent. Her story should not be framed around the revelation that she was assigned male at birth. The real story is that she entered spaces where Black transgender women had rarely been centered, then used music, comedy, theater, and visibility to make exclusion increasingly difficult to defend. Yasmin Finney, 22, age now. Yasmin Finney entered global television at an age when many young performers are still waiting for their first serious audition. Born in Manchester, England, she grew up searching for images of Black transgender girls whose lives were not defined only by rejection, tragedy, or violence. When mainstream entertainment failed to provide that reflection, Finney began creating visibility for herself through social media. Her TikTok videos combined humor, honesty, fashion, and commentary about growing up transgender in Britain. The audience she developed online recognized a confidence that had been shaped through bullying and exclusion, rather than protected from them. That visibility eventually drew the attention of casting professionals and led to the role that changed her life. In 2022, Finney made her acting debut as Elle Argent in Netflix's Heartstopper. Elle is a Black transgender student adjusting to a new school, developing her artistic ambitions, and slowly recognizing her feelings for her friend Tao. The role was significant because Elle was not introduced as a mystery, a victim, or a lesson for other characters. She was allowed friendship, romance, style, humor, and ordinary teenage uncertainty. Finney's performance helped make Heartstopper an international success. Young transgender viewers saw a character whose story included difficulty without being consumed by suffering. Finney later explained that portraying a trans person experiencing happiness and love mattered because those stories are still too rarely normalized. Her next major role carried her into one of British television's most enduring franchises. Finney played Rose Noble in the 2023 60th anniversary specials of Doctor Who, appearing alongside David Tennant and Catherine Tate. The official announcement emphasized the impact of her work in Heartstopper and introduced her to an even broader international audience. Born on August 30, 2003, Finney is 22 as of July 2026. Her career remains young, but her cultural importance arrived quickly. Yasmin Finney's story is not powerful because an audience discovered she had been assigned male at birth. It is powerful because she reached millions while playing young trans women whose dreams extended beyond survival. In a media landscape that repeatedly debates whether people like her should be visible, Finney stepped onto 2 global series and made that visibility feel natural. Isis King, 40 age, now Isis King, entered American television through a doorway that was never designed for someone like her. Born in Maryland, she studied fashion design and illustration before moving to New York City with dreams of building a creative career. But discrimination, unstable housing, and limited opportunities pushed those dreams dangerously close to collapse. For a period, King lived in transitional housing operated by the Ali Forney Center, which supports homeless LGBTQ youth. Her life changed through an unexpected encounter with America's Next Top Model. While participating as a background model in a Cycle 10 photo shoot focused on homelessness, King caught the attention of Tyra Banks and the production team. She was encouraged to audition for Cycle 11 and, in 2008, became the first openly transgender contestant in the program's history. The milestone brought visibility, but it also exposed King to public judgment. Some fellow contestants made dismissive comments about her identity, while viewers debated whether she belonged in the competition at all. Instead of being evaluated only on her photographs and runway performance, King was repeatedly expected to explain her existence to an audience unfamiliar with transgender women. She was eliminated early, but the cultural impact lasted far beyond her placement. King appeared on the Tyra Banks Show, where her transition and access to gender-affirming medical care were discussed publicly. She later returned for the all-star season of America's Next Top Model, becoming one of the few contestants to compete twice. King expanded her career into acting, fashion, design, and advocacy. Her credits eventually included Shameless, When They See Us, The L Word, Generation Q, Good Trouble, and Amazon's romantic series With Love. She also became one of the first openly transgender models featured in an American Apparel campaign. Now 40, Isis King represents more than a reality television first. She appeared on national television when transgender people were still routinely portrayed as jokes, threats, or secrets waiting to be exposed. Her presence forced viewers to see a Black transgender woman pursuing an ordinary professional dream. The real transformation in her story was not physical, it was cultural. Isis walked into a competition that questioned whether she belonged, and helped create a television landscape where the next woman would not have to explain quite as much. Jackie Shane died age 78 in 2019. Jackie Shane commanded stages decades before the entertainment industry possessed respectful language for the life she was already living. Born in Nashville, Tennessee, during the segregated South, Shane developed her voice in a world where being black and openly feminine could attract humiliation, violence, or arrest. Yet she refused to build her identity around fear. After performing across the American South, Shane traveled north and eventually found a creative home in Toronto. The city's thriving rhythm and blues clubs offered possibilities that were far more limited in Nashville. Working with bandleader Frank Motley, she developed a stage presence that combined raw soul, gospel intensity, elegant fashion, and the explosive energy associated with performers such as Little Richard and James Brown. Her defining recording was "Any Other Way." Released during the early 1960s, the song became a major regional success and reached #2 on Toronto's Chum chart. Its famous declaration, telling someone to say she was gay, carried an additional layer of meaning for listeners who understood the language beneath the performance. Shane did not publicly describe herself through the terminology audiences use today, but she was clear that she was a woman. She rejected attempts to classify her as merely a man in costume and refused to apologize for her femininity. That confidence was extraordinary during an era when transgender people were almost entirely excluded from respectable public life. Despite her popularity, Shane never received the national career her talent appeared capable of sustaining. Touring became exhausting, and the entertainment business repeatedly treated her identity as a curiosity. Around 1971, she left professional music, returned to Nashville, cared for her mother, and lived privately for decades. Her absence became so complete that rumors circulated claiming she had died. Music historians eventually found her and helped restore the career that popular culture had nearly erased. Numero Group released the artist-approved collection Any Other Way in 2017. The retrospective introduced Shane to a new generation and received a Grammy nomination for Best Historical Album. Jackie Shane died peacefully at her Nashville home on February 21, 2019. She was 78. Her story is not about a secret finally uncovered. Jackie had already told the world who she was through every suit, gesture, lyric, and performance. The world simply took decades to understand what it had witnessed. A black transgender soul pioneer living freely before history was prepared to honor her. Ariana Rose Phillip, 25. Age now. Ariana Rose Phillip entered fashion carrying identities the industry had historically treated as incompatible with high glamour. Born in Antigua and Barbuda, she moved to the Bronx with her family at 3 years old to gain better access to care for quadriplegic cerebral palsy. As a black, transgender wheelchair user, she rarely saw bodies like hers presented as fashionable, desirable, or powerful. Rather than waiting for the industry to imagine her, Phillip began imagining herself inside it. She wrote online, shared photographs, and openly expressed her ambition to become a professional model. At 14, she published This Kid Can Fly. It's about ability, not disability. A memoir co-written with Tanya Bolden about migration, disability, family, and growing up in New York. Her online presence attracted attention. And in 2018, she became the first black, transgender, physically disabled model represented by a major modeling agency. The signing was historic, but Phillip made clear that she wanted more than symbolic recognition. She wanted bookings, campaigns, covers, and the same creative opportunities available to non-disabled models. Phillip subsequently appeared in campaigns and editorials for brands and publications, including Nike, Sephora, Dove, Paper, and several international editions of Vogue. In 2021, she modeled in Moschino's Spring-Summer 2022 runway show, becoming the first wheelchair user to appear on the runway for a major luxury fashion house. Her work challenged the assumption that adaptive access and high fashion belonged in separate worlds. In 2023, she appeared on the cover of British Vogue as part of an issue centered on disabled talent. Her likeness was also represented in the Metropolitan Museum of Art Costume Institute exhibition, Women Dressing Women. In May 2026, she reached another historic milestone as the first wheelchair user to attend the Met Gala. Born on March 15, 2001, Phillip is 25 as of July 2026. Her currently public professional name is Ariana Rose Phillip, although earlier coverage often identified her as Aaron Phillip. Her story is not about a body transformed to satisfy fashion. It is about fashion being forced to expand its definition of who deserves to be photographed, dressed, celebrated, and seen. Ariana did not ask the industry to overlook her identities. She made those identities impossible for it to overlook. Behind every breakthrough was a private battle the cameras rarely captured. Fear of rejection, family judgment, public ridicule, and industry prejudice forced many of these women to fight for dignity in silence. Some lost homes, opportunity, safety, and peace simply for refusing to live as someone they were never meant to be. Yet their legacy cannot be reduced to struggle. They changed television, music, fashion, literature, technology, and Black culture by making visibility impossible to ignore. Their courage opened doors, their artistry reshaped representation, and their success proved that authenticity is not weakness. It is power the world can no longer erase. Which woman's journey inspired you most? And do you believe Hollywood is truly creating opportunities for Black transgender talent today? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to Black Hollywood Uncut, and hit the notification bell for more fearless, unvarnished stories.